All right, so this could be your future. You, as somebody who is not necessarily in the Donald Trump fan club, I don't see you in the red hat. You too, if you know Kid Rock at all, or even I think I could do it, could get invited to the White House to sit down with Donald Trump. He brought Bill Maher. He was on Bill Maher's show. He convinced Bill Maher to go to the White House, to the satisfaction of no one. No one wanted to see this. It's kind of like when Mika and Joe went to Mar-a-Lago. And Bill did it, even though he really doesn't like Donald Trump. And he says he's going to talk about it on his show. I guess he's off this Friday, but I guess the following Friday. But in the meantime, we're getting a flavor for what went down because Kid Rock went on Fox and Friends the next morning and said this.
Me, Bill, Dana White, and it could not have been better. Everyone was so surprised, so pleasant. The most shocking thing to me was, Bill's obviously a very big liberal, been very hard on the president, but he's donated a lot of money to other politicians. You've had Biden, Clinton, Obama, everybody. He had never been to the White House, and the president was so gracious. He took us up to the private residence. We saw the Gettysburg Address in the Lincoln bedroom, and I was like, "You've never been here, Bill?" And I was like, "How about this? President Trump, extending this olive branch," and we talked about things we had in common, ending wokeness, securing the border. Right. The president was asking him what he thought about policy, going on with Iran and Israel and things. It just meant, it blew my mind. It was, right. I was, very, very proud.
Amazing. And by the way, it was also added that Maher showed up with a list of terrible things that Trump had said about Maher. And he showed it, I guess, to President Trump, who signed it and gave it back to him. Wow. Classic. Anyway, yeah. So what do you make of it? Because the left is very unhappy with Bill for doing this. I don't know that the right is loving it either, but I think they're used to Trump doing this now because he's had a parade of liberals come to him, from big tech people to media people. So what's your take on it?
Well, I have some experience with this, not necessarily meeting with Donald Trump, of course, but, the culture where you're not supposed to talk to the other side at all. I mean, I've lost friends for my willingness to come on shows like this one, because I think it's important to have these conversations. I do think that there are areas of common ground. It doesn't mean you need to be a Trump supporter, but Trump is the president of the United States, meaning he's meant to represent everyone, including individuals who did not vote for him. And if the left in general is unwilling to even have a conversation with anyone on the right, including the president, well, how are you ever going to expect him to consider the issues that matter the most to you? So I actually think opening up dialogue with individuals you disagree with is more important than just existing in this echo chamber where you're going to hear everything you want to hear, where your ideas are going to be validated, and quite frankly, where the lack of challenge to your ideas will make you quite weak and unappealing eventually to the electorate.
Do you think, I know Bill loosely. I've been on his show many times. I really do think he can't stand President Trump. I mean, he truly has got like a sincere case of the TDS. But he did this, which was extraordinary. So do you think there's any chance he comes out liking Trump?
Knowing Bill Maher's values, it's unlikely. I do think that they have some common ground because of the fact that Bill Maher is willing to call out some of the pathologies on the left, some of the cultural issues on the left, the closed-mindedness and stuff like that. So I think that finding that common ground is important. And I think that's what kind of opened up this situation where they can sit down and have a conversation with each other. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Bill Maher is going to be like a red hat wearing Trump supporter tomorrow. It just means that at least he had a dialogue. Maybe he's better suited to understand where Trump is coming from and vice versa. It's just an important thing to do when you have two major public figures who disagree with each other come together. And I think what Kid Rock said about the importance of healing the country is very much true. Again, you have two very different sides, but is there a way that the two different sides can work together where they have common ground and also not engage in this really disgusting fear-mongering and dehumanization that we've seen in this country for the last several decades in regard to the other side? We need to get past that because we need to bring Americans together. I hate the fact that we've been dehumanizing each other for so long.
I'll tell you a funny story of how I met Kid Rock. It was 15 years ago. I was hosting an afternoon show on Fox called America Live. And I would go through the show email while on the air, like during the commercial breaks, and the audience would write in, and you kept it interactive. And an email popped up saying it was from Kid Rock and that he was in town in New York that night for his birthday and was wondering if Doug, my husband, and I could come. And it said where the party was. And it just had the ring of truth because it was specific. It had Doug's name, blah, blah. But I was also like, this has got to be bullshit. So I forwarded it to my booker and I was like, can you see if this is real? Because I actually am a fan of Kid Rock's. And so she got back to me and said, it's real. So that night, Doug and I went to this little bar that Kid Rock was having his birthday party in. We walked in, he was sitting there, he looked at me, he goes, holy shit, it worked. And we became friends ever after. So I really like him a lot. And he's gone, he's very pro-Trump now and he's MAGA, but he really was a political independent who was very open-minded. I would put him closer to like a Joe Rogan, who is maybe in a lot of ways more blue in his politics, but then we all lost our love and minds as a culture. And he's Kid Rock, for God's sake. I mean, there's zero chance that he is going to go woke. And that, among other issues, I think drove him into the arms of Donald Trump and MAGA.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there are a few different things happening simultaneously, and I definitely played a role in it. And then once I realized how toxic it was, I tried to kind of reform the way that, the majority of people on the left think about engaging in dialogue. So if you want to have any influence or sway over people in positions of power, whether it be a member of the media, whether it be a politician, or even the president of the United States, you can't just close yourself off to talking to the other side, right? And if you do, then you're not going to have any influence. You're going to be part of your cutesy little exclusive club where you engage in purity contests and you purge people away or purge people out of your group. Whereas, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, and I'm going to ask you. I feel that the right wing, whether they're doing it because of who they are, their own personal culture and how they value conversations, or whether they're doing it as a way of accumulating power, they bring people in. Even if there are some significant disagreements, if there are areas where they can find commonality or agreement with the other side, they're super welcoming and inviting. And that's how you build power. That's how you build power. I mean, you bring people in, you don't push people out.
I totally agree with that. And I do think there's a reason for it. I think it's because people who are on the right spend their whole lives dealing with people who disagree with them. That's just society, while it's split, 50-50 or 55-45, depending on the era, Dem and Republican. And now that Republicans have the edge these days. But overall, liberals control the institutions. They've controlled the media for a long time. They control Hollywood. They control big sports. They control big corporations. So if you're a conservative or even just center right, like, you have to deal with them everywhere. And K through 12, not to mention college education, my God, everyone's liberal and they want you to be too. So you either need to be able to talk the talk or be able to politely engage. And as I always say, not make that the stakes of your friendship if you're talking about actual friends, because in where I grew up, you'd have no friends if you only waited for conservatives to come into your life, right? Like, I was living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan for the past 17 years. I wouldn't have a single friend if I waited for it to be all conservatives. And I didn't really want to hang out with my Fox people because while they were fine at work, it's like you don't want to fill your social life with media people. That's not where anybody wants to go. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But it's disheartening. It's disheartening because, recently I lost a friendship over politics. I mean, at this point in my life, I thought we'd be past that. But as I've gotten more pro-MAGA, that's been like a deal breaker for some of my leftist friends.
I mean, I'm not even pro-MAGA. I'm just someone who's willing to have these types of conversations. And I've lost friends over that. My core values haven't changed, but I also realized that on some issues, I didn't have all the information and I changed my mind based on additional information I was exposed to. But, the cultish treatment of politics, I think, has been really, really toxic for this country. And if you're already at a point where you're automatically dehumanizing the other side or a member of the other side, you've gone way, way too far. And you're actually taking part in what's ripping the country apart. So I'm not a Kid Rock fan. I want to be clear about that. But the fact that he, out of all these people, was able to set up a meeting between Bill Maher and Donald Trump is admirable. So I'm glad that Bill Maher did it. I hope that he doesn't get too much backlash, because I don't see him as someone who's going to, go out and start cheerleading the Trump administration. But
I don't either.
He's leading by example. Having these conversations is important.
Tariff wars, stubborn inflation. No wonder gold's been routinely hitting all-time highs. In volatile markets like the one we have now, don't sit on the sidelines. You can take control and safeguard your savings. That's why so many are turning to Birch Gold Group. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into one in physical gold. It's time for you to hedge against the economic instability with gold. Text MK to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free, no-obligation info kit. Text MK to 989898. A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Countless 5-star reviews. Birch Gold is there for you. MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.